This is A Few Good Fights by the MMA Movement. I'm your host, Rob Palin, and I'm joined by the wonderful Sean Taylor. Today we're going to talk about the big MMA news. Of course, Conor McGregor said he retired. We're going to get into that. The UFC had a big event in Philadelphia where Justin Gaethje picked up a huge win against Edson Barboza. Demetrius Johnson made his one championship debut. And we're also going to look at a new segment this month in MMA history. And by this month, I mean last month, the month of March. We're going to go deep into the annals of UFC and MMA history and talk about the big moments from March. And of course, as you love and as you know, we're going to go into Sean's weird news and educating young Sean. Before Sean, you're in the big C.
I'm in the hot seat today.
You're in the hot seat. How's it feel?
Feels hot.
It feels hot.
Feels hot. Feel nervous.
Noel kept it warm for you.
Hopefully people enjoy.
Hopefully people enjoy. Yeah, you're gonna love it. Noel's not here today, but he'll be here next week. But let's go. Let's start. Big MMA news. We're going to get straight in to the UFC Fight Night Philadelphia, which went down on Saturday night. Sean, Justin Gaethje got a win.
He did,
and I believe only one person picked Justin Gaethje.
He did.
And I think was he a favourite or an underdog?
He was a slight underdog. So
Slight underdog?
Around, yeah,
so
he was around 6-5.
Sound great.
Yeah.
But what was your thoughts on Justin Gaethje's win?
I thought he looked phenomenal. I thought he was winning the fight anyway. I thought he was really fighting quite intelligently. Luke Thomas actually has a really good breakdown up on his own YouTube channel.
I haven't actually checked it yet.
I watched it when I was in college.
Doing work.
Yeah. It's a really good breakdown of how he actually fights quite intelligently, because he does have a big wrestling background. He just never uses it. Yeah. Because he's a bit of a psychopath.
Yeah,
and he likes to fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought he looked really good. The knockout was vicious, absolutely vicious.
Yeah, I love the knockout. I love the way just moments before he actually got the knockout, if you go back and listen to the commentary, I don't know if it was DC or if it was Dominic Cruz, but they were talking about how he was cutting off the cage. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure he just laid that trap for Edson Barboza to go out on that left-hand side. I didn't see any breakdowns from it yet, but that kind of leaping right hook, it reminded me of like Conor's kind of overextending left straight that he throws, where it's almost like a false sense of security. Mm-hmm. And he kind of just throws that leaping right. I thought it was beautiful, and it was a great performance by Gaethje, and he did fight a little bit smarter, but I do agree that there has been fights in the past where he has fought smart. It's not like the first time we've seen this, but I thought he did fight a little bit smarter. And even like the leg kicks and stuff, he was checking those leg kicks. A few did land. Yeah, he was definitely hurt.
The start of the fight was crazy when they just opened up and traded leg kicks.
Yeah.
They looked vicious.
They did. Yeah.
Fucking hell.
What's your thoughts on Edson Barboza? I thought there's loads of people now saying that Edson Barboza's chin is gone. And I know he's been finished a couple of times, and people said that he has a suspect chin. But is it just a division, the guys that he's fighting for you?
I mean, like, you can call anyone chinny when they get knocked out, but I mean, when people hit hard, you can't call someone chinny.
Just gloves as well.
Yeah, 4-ounce gloves. Gaethje hits hard. I don't know if I call him chinny. Don't know. I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't call him chinny, but it was another devastating knockout. It's like we've had so many of these now over the last while.
The knockout of the month competition would be insane.
Like if we don't knockout of the month competition, and that's something that we might do further down the line. We're not going to do it this month, but maybe look at the best knockouts, best finishes, best fighter of the month, and there was probably a handful of people on this card that could have got that.
Josh Emmett, Justin Gaethje. Last few weeks you have Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah.
You have, who am I forgetting? Pettis.
Yeah, Pettis. Yeah, and not the same knockout, similar knockouts. As in, at least the finish was as in the guy bounced his head off the canvas. But it was vicious, and again, great performance by Justin Gaethje. And we were kind of speaking about this before we went on air. What do you do with Justin Gaethje next? Because he's probably the most exciting guy in that division. He's called a highlight for a reason. Mm-hmm. And like a couple of wins for a guy who was that exciting and a guy who was highly ranked like him definitely puts him close. But he is in a division that is jam-packed as well. So what would you do with Justin Gaethje next?
Myself and Carl were talking about this at work today. The division's very messy with the interim and Khabib being out till his suspension is up on
November potentially.
Probably not going to fight until December. They might do him that in the year card.
December, January.
You're really looking at early next year before a number one contender actually gets to whoever wins that unification between the two belts. Mm-hmm. I really like the winner of Iaquinta and Cerrone facing Justin Gaethje. That's a violent fight.
You're a sadist, man.
Yeah. I really like that
I
fight.
love that fight.
Maybe Tony, if Tony, depends how soon Tony's back.
Yeah, hopefully Tony gets himself sorted out.
We'd love to see him back.
I would. Let's speaking of jokes though, let's look at the UFC rankings and we look at them. We'll see who actually is there. So I don't think these have been updated because Justin Gaethje is shown as going down a ranking.
Okay.
But you know, it's the UFC.
He won his
ranking.
last fight as well, though.
It's bizarre. I don't know because somebody else obviously won. Donald Cerrone's actually number 7. He was calling that out, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure that he's the one that said in his post-fight interview, said, "What's the crack? Donald Cerrone is ahead of me." Yeah, which is ridiculous to be fair.
Where is Felder? Felder called out.
Felder is
Gaethje.
9. Okay. Felder is 9. So Justin Gaethje is number 8 as of recording. That probably will update soon. You'd hope so. Yeah. Because Edson Barboza is number 6. So you'd probably expect Justin Gaethje to be at least number 6. Kevin Lee is still number 5. Okay. So you have Aloy Quinta, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor. Status is unknown. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And Tony Ferguson, and then Khabib. So really ahead of Justin Gaethje right now, you have Kevin Lee, who's going up in weight. Yep. You have Aloy Quinta, who fights Donald Cerrone, who's ranked ahead of him, and then Edson Barboza. So really, apart from Tony Ferguson and the guys involved in the title picture, there's not really many guys he can fight if he's going to go up further.
No. I think the winner of Aloy Quinta and Cerrone makes sense for the division because the division has to keep active no matter what's going on. Unless Holloway or the winner of Holloway and Poirier defends the interim. Yeah,
maybe
possibly.
But that division has been historically crazy, and like the funny thing is this for me and these conversations that we always have this same conversation after an event and say who's next for who. Then someone gets injured. Then someone pops. USADA pops them. Then I don't know, somebody gets suspended for whatever reason, and so many things happen. So it is a bit silly when you're like, oh, she should fight him because it makes sense, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
What would you do in an ideal world?
To be honest, the winner of that fight makes sense. Or like I don't think he's that far away from a title fight.
Don't think so. I think if the division wasn't the way it is, you said it earlier, he's probably a number 1 contender if the division wasn't the way it is.
I to be honest, he's not far off because Tony Ferguson, he should be off for a while. Yeah. I know he was talking about potentially coming back,
but by the sounds of what was going on, you want him to take a while off and get himself right.
Yeah, like he tweeted that he was getting help, or he put it on Instagram, which is great, and hopefully he does. If you're not aware of what happened with Tony Ferguson, there was some domestic issues. It wasn't technically domestic violence because he didn't actually hit his wife or his son, I believe. No. But he was acting pretty crazy, saying some crazy stuff, and I think he was like throwing stuff around the house, smashing.
Sort of hearing some stuff and.
Yeah, so he obviously isn't in the right frame of mind. And then he said he's going to get some help. And then a week later or 2 days later or something, he goes, I'm ready to go. I'm perfect. Let's go. Who do you want me to fight next? So hopefully he's gone. So yeah, and then Conor McGregor, of course. So I don't think he's that far off a title fight, which, I'd like to see. But then Edson Barboza, where'd you go with him? He's that type of guy, isn't he, who does so well up to a point and then loses to a guy who's just in that kind of upper echelon.
He's probably heading towards that direction now where he's going to be fighting the next up and coming thing in lightweight. Yeah, bit of a gatekeeper possibly.
It's unfortunate. I did like his picture. He just got knocked out and then he had a picture with his newborn kid. Son or daughter, I'm not sure who it is. Yeah, like nice. The same night or else the day after. So imagine what that fucking emotional roller coaster was like.
Imagine what he's going to be asked about now in 10 years. Like, do you remember the birth of your son?
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah, I got horrifically knocked out, and it's available on UFC.tv or MMA Core. In the co-main event, this is one I gloated about getting one right, so I will admit that I got one very wrong. Dave Branch lost to Jack Hermanson by guillotine choke in the first round. What was your thoughts on this fight?
I picked Branch as well. I had a very bad night on the picks.
Yeah, I had a terrible night on the picks. I'm just gloating because I got one right because I got the rest wrong.
I love the guillotine choke. I'm a big fan of it. Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, it was nice high elbow guillotine choke, and Brendan Norman said it under one of my posts, and me too. It's a nice one, especially when you don't have the longest arms. I know a lot of people say it's good for really long arms, but if you have short arms, you can get that grip in. It's devastating. A very good performance. I did think Branch tapped a little bit early, and I don't like being the guy to say, oh, you shouldn't have tapped. I don't agree with that. Like, tap if you have to tap. But it just looked like he didn't fight the position very much. It looked like he relinquished the position, and I put a bet on, so that's probably half the reason why. But I thought he tapped a little bit early. I thought he could have fought the position a little bit, fought the hands, tried to pass.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to criticise the fighter too much, and I'm sitting here recording.
Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, we still want John, Dave.
Yeah, we still want John.
Yeah, possibly. But I don't know how tight it was. So
yeah, it probably was very, very tight. Just on forced viewing. Sorry, Dave. Because he listens all the time.
Yeah.
Josh Emmett got a huge win over Michael Johnson. Another devastating. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. He sparked him.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on the finish? And I guess, what was your thoughts on the fight? Was he winning the fight?
Don't think so. I thought Johnson was on his way to probably a comfortable win. I thought he won the first 2 rounds. He was under a bit more. He was probably losing the 3rd round as it was going on. I thought Emmett was up under pressure a little bit, landing a lot more shots. I thought Johnson's striking looked very good the first 2 rounds. He was very flowy, very in good rhythm. Yeah, all that. Thought he looked very good, and then he just got sparked.
Yeah, man. I thought Johnson looked good. He was landing some good shots. I thought Emmett looked like a guy who was off for a while. He didn't look slow. He just looked a little bit off the pace, which we kind of spoke about going in. It was always going to be tough. Because he was coming off not just a long layoff, but a long layoff because of injury. Yeah,
so he wasn't sort of taking over for a lot of that period.
Yeah, and even like looking at interviews that he had going into it, and it was pretty it was horrible to read for like a professional athlete talking about how he was talking about retirement and how one of the only reasons he stayed on is because his wife was working, making money while he was recovering and rehabbing, and these guys don't get a salary. So like a lot of people think, they're professional fighters, they make so much money. And even like when you look at a guy making, say, I don't know what he made in his last fight, but let's say he made 60k for that one fight.
That was 30 and 30 on win based as well.
Yeah, so say if it was that, right? That doesn't go that far. Like you're talking about, I only make 40 grand a year, 30 grand a year, or 20 grand a year, whatever you want to say. But like that has to be, he has to pay his taxes first on that. He has to pay his coaches, and then he has to pay for everything else that going into being a professional athlete, which is a lot. So it's very, very difficult for these guys, and especially when you don't have a salary. So I thought he looked like a guy who was off for a while, but he looked good. He looked like, it's not like he looked bad. I just thought Michael Johnson looked better. But I do agree. I think Johnson was winning the fight over the 3 rounds, and Jesus, like it was a textbook right hand.
It was brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal. Like if you look at the still images of it, it's like one of them where like his head was like completely to the side.
Yeah, and the spit comes out of his mouth.
The spit, like it was a Rocky. I was in Philly.
It was nasty.
Oh my god, unbelievable.
DC
stuff.
actually said that.
Did he?
I think it was during the Carolina and Michelle fight. He was like, "This is why we come to Philly, boys."
Love DC. Speaking of DC commentary.
I love him. Love him on commentary. I think he's brilliant. Like he's watching it as a fan, and he's a lot smarter than any of us watching it now. Yeah. So
he's
big
phenomenal.
fan.
Big fan of him. Michelle Waterson got a big win over Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Another one I got wrong. Yeah. As much as I wanted to pick Michelle Waterson.
Yeah. Where's that?
Just love her. I love Michelle.
Her. Yeah. I'm in love. Yeah.
Thought she looked very good. Thought she fought a great fight. Gave it to her all 3 rounds. Very smart. Her legs are so long.
Yeah, and thick.
Yeah, she makes those legs snap up like a jab.
Yeah.
When she's like, they said it on commentary, there's no recoil in her legs, they just snap up.
Yeah.
Really
there's no tell on them. And I was watching the open workouts. I think it was the open workouts.
Is this the thing she done with the bottles?
She done with the bottles.
Yeah.
And the minute she done that, I was like, she's gonna win.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's John Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. So flexible.
So flexible. But not really. I was surprised. In many ways in this fight, I thought Karolina would have been a lot more physically impressive, imposing. And she wasn't. I thought Waterson was she looked strong in there. She looked really, really strong. She was obviously shorter and less rangy, but her control of the range and her ability to keep Karolina away from her in the clinch, because you could see in the moments when Karolina got close, she was having success, but Waterson game plan very, very well.
She's very technical as well. All her stuff looked technically very good.
Yeah.
Couple of sweeps she made. Yeah. A couple of ones where she hopped over to get position on top. The second round especially, she was very dominant on top, and for all the talk going in about how undersized she was for the division compared to Karolina, she dominated on top in that second round. Yeah,
it looks like she's done a lot of strength and conditioning going into this, because she looked really, really good physically. But very good performance. They lined up the title fight talk, like even before they done the interview post fight with her, they were lining it up, and I'm sure like that's the UFC is a business at the end of the day, and she's very marketable and she is popular, and the division isn't the deepest, so I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it, but I just thought it was funny like how it was almost like it was scripted to be that way. Like I'd say they were like, if she wins, or even if Karolina won, maybe they would have done the same thing. But does she deserve a title fight next?
I think she's won 3 fights as an underdog now.
Yeah, so, that's a good point. Yeah,
she's won 3 fights in a row as an underdog, and generally in the women's divisions, you're only 2 fights max away from a title shot, you'd say. So 3 fights as an underdog is I'm fine with that, or getting a title shot.
Yeah, and Caroline, according to the UFC's rankings, was number 6.
Yeah.
Michelle Watterson was number 9. So that's a big win. That'll probably bring her up a good few places. Then you have the title fight between Jessica Andrade and the champ Rose Namajunas. Who knows?
How do you think she matches up against either of those?
Rose and her fought, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Let me go back to that, because let me just Google that while I try to fill some airtime. I believe Rose and her fought, and Rose won that fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Am I correct? Let me just verify that.
But the 3-fight win streak would, for me, be good enough to justify a rematch there. I think Michelle is very much an improving fighter. She looked better and better in each of her last fights. So that's more than good enough to justify a rematch for me in that case. I was right. Yeah, I think you're right. But I thought that fight, I thought it was actually a poor matchup for her against Rose Namajunas. So like, I wouldn't be jumping the gun to say she'd beat Rose in a rematch. Yeah. So I think that's a tough matchup. I think Jessica Andrade is a tough matchup. For the same reasons why I thought Carolina, who definitely is a completely different fighter, but I just think the pressure closing that distance will be a difficult fight for her. But if she can do what she done in this fight, I thought that was super impressive, keeping that range, as you said. The game plan was brilliant.
Game plan was brilliant. And she's coming from a camp that is historically great for game plans, that Jackson Wink camp. So yeah, brilliant performance. And I wouldn't be too opposed getting a title fight next, but who knows what's going to happen in that fight.
She could get injured. She could be... Yeah. Who knows?
Paul Craig with the Hail Mary submission. Again.
That
unbelievable.
Man is a wizard.
It's ridiculous,
isn't
it?
He was getting... probably fighting for a career as well.
Yeah.
In the UFC.
In the UFC. But like to be honest, we had fellow countryman of Paul Craig on the show, on our previous show, obviously Fight Talk, if you never checked it out. We had Stevie Ray on, and he was talking about when he was getting cut by the UFC, or potentially getting cut, talking about just calling it a day, because there's not that many promotions outside of the UFC, especially in Europe, that you can really make a complete living off it, especially when you get used to the paychecks that the UFC pay. And again, there's an argument there, do they pay enough? But when you go from making maybe 30 and 30 to making maybe 10 grand a fight, it becomes difficult for that to be a full-time thing. So I'd say once you get to those heights and then you fall back down, I'd say you do immediately reevaluate. The
motivational thing is very interesting. How bad do you want it?
Yeah. And can I get back there?
Yeah.
It's got to be tough. So yeah, he probably was fighting for it definitely is at least his UFC career.
He was 1-3 in his last 4 fights going into that. So.
Yeah, definitely. Against a guy who had a bit of hype coming in. And if I was Kennedy, because I'm not going to attempt the second name, if I was his coach, or just his mate, I would have been, oh damn, stop, just jump out. And he was trying. Paul Craig's one of them guys who will pull guard and just hold on to you. So it's not like he was just like staying there for the crack.
Yeah.
But like, I would just be like, please just get out of there, get out of there, get out of there. We seen what Paul Craig can do when he done it again.
Yeah. Did Noel pick Paul Craig?
He did. I was fuming, I was.
Did he call submission as well?
He did. To be fair though. It's Paul Craig's submission.
Paul Craig was 11-4, so I don't know what price his submission was.
Yeah, because last week you told him. He goes, Paul Craig was submission. You're like, yeah, go on, stick a bet on that. That'd be a good price. Yeah.
Did you listen to me, Noel? No.
Yeah, we'll have to ask him.
Yeah. He definitely didn't back it.
Yeah. Main card, the opener of the main card, Shayman Moraes lost a decision to Sadiq Youssef. Another one that I got wrong.
What do you think of it?
I thought it was a close fight. I thought Moraes looked good in moments, but I just thought Youssef was the more aggressive, scored the better points with strikes. Just overall the better fighter. I thought Moraes did need to finish in the end, or at least have a very, very good round in the third to win. And I just thought Youssef done a good job.
I think Youssef's going to be a bit of a problem in that division. He looks very good.
He does look good. And I was surprised when I did see that, Noel pointed out last week, that he is the same guy that finished Dylan Tuke in Brave a few months back. So interesting dude. I did like it. Was there anything on the prelims that really stood out to you?
I'm trying to think now. Jesus, I was half asleep watching it.
Did you see the Kevin Holland fight against Gerald Mersket?
Possibly.
It was an interesting one.
Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, give me your thoughts, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Kevin Holland, I thought he looked pretty good. There was some good scrambles in it. Mershat just like got tired after like a round, and he was fighting the rest of the fight, like kind of recovering from that. But I thought Kevin Holland looked good, and he's a really, really interesting dude. Like, he's just so strange.
Yeah.
Like, talking to people and, like, going back to his thing. And I thought it was hilarious. He went back to his stool. I think it was after the 4th round.
Was this the one who went back to DC and was like, give me some wrestling
Give me some
advice,
wrestling
DC?
advice, yeah.
I did see that.
And he's, like, always talking in the cage. I think he's very, very funny. But, yeah, I thought he looked good. Ray Borg and Casey Kenny was a good, great grappling match. I thought Ray Borg won that, to be honest.
Someone scored a 30-27 to Kenny, did they? Is that right?
I don't know. I'd have to check that.
Because I seen Borg.
As in one's judge?
Yeah. Because I've seen Borg tweeting about it. He took the decision like a man, to be fair. He didn't complain about it, but he just questioned the scoring.
Yeah, well.
Especially with the backstory there as well.
Yeah.
And missing weight.
Yeah.
So that was a poor deduction.
Yeah, man.
So
20%. Like, I know, like what he missed weight. He needs to sort that out. Like I know, like, he has the problems, but, like, you know, but when you feel awful taking the horse,
yeah,
you know, knowing what his story is with his son, and hopefully it seems like everything's going well with his son, so hopefully they do recover. But you would feel awful taking that.
Brendan Schaub is helping out as well with some medical costs.
He confirmed it. Ray Borg, so fair play to him. Thought Maria Morose looked good on the prelims as well. Desmond Green got a huge TKO victory over Ross Pearson. Looked good.
I seen that KO. That was massive.
Yeah. And Kevin Aguilar had a good decision win over Enrique Barzola. Those are the ones that stood out to me. Let us know in the comments below what stood out to you. Let us know who should Justin Gaethje fight next. And how far is he away from a title fight? Because I'd be interested to hear what people think about that. The UFC wasn't the only card on last weekend. There was Bellator on Friday, but we also had one championship in the wee hours of the morning on Sunday. Although it wasn't really wee hours for us, was it?
No, it was grand time for us. It was around breakfast time. I watched it.
I was still asleep.
Yeah, I was in.
No, I woke up like halfway through the card, but I was mostly still asleep for most of it. But Demetrius Johnson got a big win in his debut, but Eddie Alvarez didn't. He actually lost. He dropped a TKO loss to Natsukin in the 4th round, and Shinya Aoki captured his lightweight title back in the main event. First off, let's start with Eddie Alvarez, because that was the one furthest down the card. What was your thoughts on Eddie Alvarez's debut in one? It was disappointing for him and probably for his fans, I guess. He
just looked a bit sluggish, a bit off. He covered up very quickly when he went to the ground. It was odd. It was odd. He looked nervous coming out, I thought.
Yeah.
I know he is generally quite bouncy when he comes out, but I thought he just looked a little bit off. New surroundings, new promotion, but didn't look himself.
Yeah, which is strange, isn't it? Because I do agree. I think he looked off, and I kind of hate making that argument. Like, this happens a lot when a guy who's a big favourite loses. Yeah. We kind of come out and we say he looked off, which I do agree.
And it's a hard one to back up.
It's a hard one to back up, but it's also it does take a little bit away from the winner's performance.
Yeah, I thought he looked very good as well.
I thought he looked very good, and that's so taking nothing away from his performance, because he looked great, and that guy hits hard. You can clearly see he hits hard, and I've watched some of his other fights. And that guy hits like a truck, especially for that weight class. But I do agree. I think he looked off, which is strange, because before Eddie Alvarez went to the UFC, Eddie Alvarez was known as a guy who would just travel to different promotions. You know, he did settle in some. He settled in Bellator. But early in his career, he would travel to different promotions and get many different looks, fighting under different banners, and look good. So it is a bit strange to see how he was quite off in his debut. You'd expect him just to fit in quite nicely. Is it age? Is it the wars that he's been in over the years?
Yeah, when you're in that many wars, like for last week, you guys gave me Robbie Lawler on the Educating Young Sean. Yeah. When you're in that many wars, it's going to take its toll. When was his last fight?
Eddie Alvarez.
It's a while back. Well, not a while back, but he's been out of the ring now. I don't like making that argument myself either, because it's hard to justify, he just looked off. You can't say this was wrong or that was wrong. It's just an observation.
Yeah. The problem, or not the problem, but the big takeaway, I think, and what I said in the chat, was just how quickly he did cover up. Yeah. And again, the other dude, Natsukin, hits hard, or I think it's Nasty Yukin or something like that.
I think that is his nickname. I definitely underestimated him as well.
100%. Well, everyone did. It was Eddie Alvarez, so everyone was thinking, it's a win.
Yeah, massive favourite as well with the bookies, Eddie Alvarez was.
But he did cover up really quickly, because historically, Eddie Alvarez, if he gets hit like that, he'll come back out striking. We've seen it against some really good guys. So maybe it is the age, maybe it is just the years and the punishment in his career. But he did look a little bit off. But that is a big win for Nastyukin. I can't say that name. Timofey. But big win for him. And unfortunate for Eddie Alvarez. But we'll see how he comes back in his next fight. Demetrius Johnson made his debut as well in one championship. One of the best fighters in the world. I think it's easy to say.
Definitely.
And he put in a really good performance against Waka Matsu.
Waka.
Yeah. Good performance.
Yeah, Ty looked really good. Ty was a real champion's performance from him because he took some shots. He looked not in trouble, but he was hit a couple of times. He was clipped, and he grappled well. He had the fight IQ to grapple, and he took it to the ground. And the guillotine was beautiful.
Yeah,
it was that high elbow one again. Brendan was talking about it on Facebook. It was
delicious.
Beautiful. It just looks like a proper guillotine when you lift it up.
Yeah, I tweeted that Demetrius Johnson is like a surgeon, and he's not a typical MMA fighter. And what I mean by that is, like, in MMA you expect some kind of chaos or just madness in a fight, and when you're watching a Demetrius Johnson fight, generally that doesn't happen. Generally he's so controlled. He's almost like if you watch like a Floyd Mayweather or something, going in, he's just going to put on a masterclass. Yeah. Maybe he can get caught, it can happen, but he's going to put on a masterclass, and it's going to be exciting if you like what this is. Yeah. If you like technique and you like somebody just completely dominating somebody, and the first round was competitive. It wasn't like it
was a very competitive fight.
It was. But Demetrius Johnson, again, similar to Floyd Mayweather, and you can probably speak about this more than me because you're a huge boxing fan, but early on Floyd Mayweather isn't great. He'll probably drop a round or two because he'll be very, very defensive. I know he does that over rounds anyway, but he'll be seeing what you're throwing. He'll be making reads. Yeah. And then once you get into like 4th, 5th, 6th round, you're fucked because he has it. You're just fucked. And that's what happens with Demetrius Johnson, but he obviously does it in a round. Like in the second round, he made all the reads. Like, all right, I know what to do now. I'm going to take him down.
He's so calm in an absolute hellstorm. He's so calm.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so impressive to watch. Yeah. With regards to Floyd will spend 4 rounds just downloading your, as Noel would say, downloading your data. Yeah. Then after round 4, he's coming at you.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I know what you do now.
But like you were saying with DJ, Floyd would have always historically had a bit more trouble with southpaws. That was one of the arguments made going to the McGregor fight. Yeah. Disregard that, but Floyd would have always had a bit more trouble with southpaws. We did see DJ get clipped a little bit in this fight, and he dealt with it very well. Yeah, so he did. Very impressed with that.
Very, very impressive, and it's a big get for one championship. Yeah. This,
especially in Asia where they love the little guys.
They love the little guys. Yeah. So great. And really good card.
They weren't even, Eddie and DJ weren't even on the main card.
I was actually going to say that to you. We'll talk a little bit about the other fights that happened briefly, but it's kind of cool and refreshing to see these two big name fighters from the UFC who are being paid probably a shit ton of money.
Probably the most on the card.
Probably the most on the card. And one championship are like, yeah, that's great. But we're going to put you further down, and we're going to put our title fights ahead of you. And it's no problem. Yeah. It's kind of refreshing, right?
Yeah. It's quite cool. You can imagine if that was the UFC, DJ was never a headliner anyway. Yeah. But Eddie probably would have been headlining that card ahead of him if he was in a title fight. Or in if those two fights were on a UFC card, Eddie and they're probably 2 fight night headliners. Yeah, I agree. And it's also cool as well that he's in a tournament, DJ. Yeah, because really cool. At this point in his career, and I was watching an interview with him, he really seems like the type of guy who's like, I've made enough money, and now I play games and make probably even more money. Twitch. So like, I want to go out here, I want to go to Japan, and I want to do what the guys before me have done. Go into tournaments, win tournaments, like the Pride tournaments back in the day. Like, and he even cited like Rampage Jackson. Yeah. So it does seem like he's going over here to almost just fulfill a goal that he has. It's not really about the money, and I'm sure that helps, as it always does. But like, it is kind of cool to see him go over here into a tournament. Obviously Eddie done a similar thing, but it is cool to see. People talk about legacy all the time. DJ seems to be a guy who's very much practicing what he preaches with regards to legacy. I agree. With the tournament stuff as well. Yeah, and he's never really strayed away from that. No. From the start of his career, or at least the start of what people, really tuned in for, WEC and then later in the UFC. He always spoke about being respectful and just wanting to be the best fighter ever. And for some people, that's a bit of a turn off because at the end of the day, this is the fight business. It's prize fighting, so people do want a bit of drama. But it is still cool to see him just sticking to his guns and saying, I just want, like, I'm a martial artist. I want to be that guy. Because even when the TJ fight was talked about originally, he was like, nah, I'm busy clearing out the 125 division. Yeah. It's man, I love it.
I love it. And that's not to say I don't love all the other stuff, because believe me, I do. I love everything. But yeah, Bibiano Fernandez got a big win as well in a 145 title fight. Angela Lee lost her title. She was obviously a big star for one championship, and she dropped her title in a very, very good finish. I'm not going to even try to pronounce her name, but Jinnan is her first name, so we'll go with that. But really, really cool to see Shinya Aoki recapturing his title in the main event.
Gary Tonin got a win as well.
Gary Tonin got a win on the undercard.
He got a KO as well for a jiu-jitsu guy, which was good.
That guy is gonna be incredible.
Yeah, he's going places.
He's gone places.
He's a Gracie school guy. Is that right?
Tonin, I don't know actually.
Brendan would know.
Brendan would know. Why do I think like 10 Planet?
Oh, maybe you're right.
Am I right?
I think I did see that. You're right.
I might be.
I'm gonna sound stupid now, but yeah, I do think you're right.
Danaher Death Squad. But I don't know why, but I thought that he had some kind of involvement with
Brendan's gonna correct us in the comments.
Brendan's gonna go mental. If Brendan watches this, we're fucked.
Let us know, Brendan.
Conor McGregor has officially retired from mixed martial arts. So in being typical for us, we record of a Monday, a little peek behind the curtain there. On the way home, and this news came out on Twitter that Conor McGregor has officially retired from MMA. And we just missed this, so we didn't speak about this last week, but a lot of stuff has happened since.
Yep.
Well, not really a lot of stuff, but like people have weighed in, and we've seen a little bit of development coming from it. But I guess we'll go back to what we would have said last week if we caught it.
Yeah.
What was your initial thoughts when you saw his tweet saying he's retired from the sport formerly known as mixed martial art?
Bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
Did you ever see Carl Pilkington, the bullshit man?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah, he didn't get the offer he wanted. They were offering him a co-main event with under a heavyweight bout. Dana's come out and said that. I think what Conor's discovered now is he has a lot less leverage than he used to because of the guarantees that the ESPN deal offers. Where did I see talking? I think I seen someone talking. Could have been Luke Thomas.
I think it was Luke Thomas. He done a video
he
on
said
this.
Basically they're guaranteed 500,000 buys on every pay-per-view, and obviously if it goes above that, great. Wow. But they're guaranteed 500,000.
Where did you get that information from?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's roughly. I think he said he read that somewhere. So
right.
He's normally quite
in a book.
Yeah, he's normally quite legit. To be guaranteed 500,000 buys every event is pretty enormous when you look at what some of them have been doing recently. And it offers, if guys like Conor haven't got the leverage to do that, there's nobody with that leverage.
No, nobody. And I guess this was like a concerted effort from the UFC. Once they start getting messed around by Conor, and Conor was making all these requests, Maymac and all this. I say they were like, we need to do something. Yeah. Like this is getting out of hand. Like if Conor's gonna, like, generally, like, these guys don't go away and then nobody else comes up. Someone else will come up similar to Conor. As in this, he'll have similar leverage because he's such a draw. And I say the UFC saw that and they were like, here, this is getting completely out of hand. Yeah. We need to nip this in the bud right now, because the UFC has been historically very good at I don't want to say not paying fighters, but I'll say not paying fighters.
Underpaying fighters.
Yeah. And maybe not paying fighters the revenue that they should be getting.
Undervaluing fighters.
Exactly. And I think the UFC probably sought this with ESPN. And especially considering the numbers have been really good with ESPN right now. Yeah. The deal just makes sense for them. But I do agree. I think that's what it is. It's Conor not getting what he wants. Now, this doesn't mean that he's not retired. No. I just mean, I think that was the move. So the initial move was, I'm going to throw this tweet out and let's see what happens. Yeah. Doesn't mean he's not retired, but I don't think that was him in any way, like, completely confirming his retirement. I quote tweeted a BBC tweet. They tweeted a poll basically saying, do you think it's bullshit or do you think it's legit? And I said, why can't it be both? Yeah. He has the money to retire if he wants to. So if the UFC call his bluff, he's gone. Exactly, yeah. Or that's it can be a power move. Yeah. It probably was a power move, but it can easily be both because he has the money to retire. It's not like he needs to fight. Yeah, yeah. He's making more than enough money from Proper 12. Proper 12, yeah. To see all the ads, there was a lot of ads during the UFC event. I'm not sure if you've seen them. What's that? Yeah, a lot of Proper 12 ads, which I thought was funny. He could have placed them. Definitely, yeah. And it was him as well. Yeah. Just when he was just sitting there like, Proper 12, a proper Irish whiskey. It was gas. But yeah, I thought the tweet as well was quite unofficial, to say the least. It wasn't very official. probably could have done a better job. Like if it was a power move, probably could have done a better job convincing the promotion that it was this. Then Dana White, of course, immediately came out, well, not immediately, but hours later probably came out and said, oh, wish him all the best.
Yeah, I think that was quite clever from Dana as well. Very clever. Just called his bluff. He's like, completely grand, doesn't need to fight. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. You've done a great job in MMA. You've made loads of money. You're making money on whiskey. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a bit of a standoff now, so it is really interesting to see now where the UFC or even Conor go from here. Yeah, because if they're getting guarantees, they don't need to go to Conor as if they need a pay-per-view, they need a big one to end the year. They don't need that anymore. Yeah. So
I do think it's important, because I did watch that Luke Thomas video to say that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be great to have someone like Conor here, or someone like Ronda Rousey, 100%. Or having Jon Jones around, who seems now to be kind of breaking that barrier after that last event. But it just means that they're not relying on it as much. Mm-hmm. They're not like, because like if you go back and you look at a few of the cards from, would I say late last year or maybe the year before, where like the UFC were just struggling.
Very poor.
Yeah, they were just struggling. They were just trying to get any big name onto a card just to sell a few pay-per-views.
If you were to look at the graph, I'd imagine, of pay-per-view buys, very spikes. A lot of spikes.
A lot of spikes, yeah.
So this guarantee flattens it out. A couple of spikes when Jon Jones fights. But yeah, a lot flatter and more consistent.
Yeah, they don't need the spikes as much.
Exactly. The spikes don't need to be as big as they had to be.
Yeah, because as well, not just the spikes were big, but the actual the depths. You know, the lower level ones were a lot smaller, and now it's going to be way more consistent across the board.
Even now, if you look at UFC 239, we're going to talk about that a bit later. Yeah. That is stacked.
But is this good for fighters though?
I don't think it makes it. Nothing's going to change for fighters. It's unlikely the UFC are going to reinvest any extra profits back into paying fighters more. Yeah. If anything from the past is worth going by. Yeah.
But you think the fact that now not that you can't be a breakout star, like you can still, like it's still the guys who make a lot of money for the UFC will still be valued, just quite not as much as a guy who can come in and say I want to have a boxing match, and they're like, okay, let's do a boxing match. That's just not going to happen anymore. But so you can't really be that, real breakout star who, kind of what Conor was for that probably year and a half, 2 years.
I think the casual fans are going to know a lot more UFC fighters than they did previously. Like, if you follow ESPN on Twitter, they actually did a lot of stuff with Michelle Waterson during the week. Little 3-minute clips on Twitter and stuff like that. Stuff like that is brilliant for getting fighters out there. Yeah. Big time, yeah. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. But monetarily, I don't think it's... Unless outside sponsorships, obviously, with the exposure that Michelle would have got for that. Yeah. It's not going to result in extra pay for fighters from the UFC.
Yeah, and you'd wonder how the new ESPN start times and stuff will change things, because to me this really does look like the UFC really trying to push to change what the sport is as a whole, like, to its depth, because MMA and just prize fighting in general has always been star driven. That's what it is. And this does seem like a move for the UFC to try get away from that as much as possible and turn it into more of like what the NFL is. Like, the star players in the NFL, everyone loves Tom Brady. I said Tom Brady because that's the only guy I can think of.
Odell Beckham Jr. is a huge star. Yeah.
And then like basketball,
LeBron.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe's retired.
He's gone, is he?
Yeah, LeBron's still
Michael Jordan's still going, is he?
James Harden as well. They're two of the big stars at the minute in NBA.
This is why we bring on the show.
Yeah. I'm young.
And then soccer. You have Cristiano Ronaldo.
It's football, Rob.
What about Gaelic football? No,
don't mind that.
I don't mind that. And then you have the Gooch in
the GA.
But what I mean is, like, if one of those players, like if Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't play next week, people are still going to go watch. People are still going to tune in. It doesn't really matter. It's not as star driven. Of course, he will get more people to tune in because some people just like him. But I do think this is the UFC trying to push as much as possible towards that. Will it work? I don't know, but it does seem that way.
Yeah, I think it's trying to get more people follow the sport rather than follow fighters. Like you were saying, Ronaldo, people don't, as much as there is Ronaldo fanboys and fangirls, people follow the sport. Yeah, and I think that's what ESPN is going to be very useful at doing for the UFC.
So let's see predictions. Does Conor McGregor fight again?
Yes.
Yeah, that was quick.
Like,
yeah.
Fights again.
Yeah.
Soon. But at the minute, I think the only way he fights again is if he doesn't get entirely what he wants from the UFC.
Yeah.
Don't think he gets the deal he wants.
Yeah. I agree. And of course, there was other news that came out about Conor. I'm not going to get too much into it because it's all accusations. And, you know, over in Ireland, I'm sure you know that he wasn't named in a certain story for a reason. People can't really talk about it because of press things. We're not entirely sure how that fits into.
It's just another interesting facet of the whole storyline.
Yeah,
going on at the minute.
yeah, and there's definitely developments in that as well. You know what we're talking about. We're not going to get too much into accusations today, but maybe when we get further down. Well, definitely when we get further down into that.
Yep.
UFC 239 is looking as jacked as Yoel Romero. It is unbelievable. So UFC 239, this is what the card is slated as right now. Not every one of these fights are confirmed, but this is what we're in for if it does go ahead. You have Jon Jones on the top against Thiago Santos for the UFC light heavyweight title. Amanda Nunes defending her title against Holly Holm. In the co-headliner, Francis Ngannou versus Junior Dos Santos. Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal. And Luke Rockhold versus Jan Blachowicz in Luke Rockhold's light heavyweight debut. If that goes ahead, how excited are you? And I think I know just based on your reaction.
That card is fucking amazing.
Yes.
Outside the two title fights, any of those 3 card fights could headline a fight night.
Absolutely.
And you'd be like, that's a great main event.
Yeah.
So to stick 5 of them on a main card, absolutely brilliant.
Unbelievable.
The new start time is going to be in effect for the pay-per-views as well.
I don't think so. I although it's an ESPN Plus thing now.
Even still, if it's on, if it ends at 6:30, that's one I'm happy to stay up till 6:30.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That's a brilliant card,
Yeah.
and I'd imagine there'll be quite a few good fights on the card as well. I don't see why they wouldn't stick a good little. I don't see why they wouldn't stick a good little fight on the.
No, they
the
definitely
top
will.
of the prelims.
100%. Like especially with these cards that are stacked to the brim, and they expect a lot of viewers to tune in. They always put these little great little fighters in them
because it gets people who are sort of 50-50 but buying the pay-per-view. They'll carry over and buy a pay-per-view.
Exactly, yeah. And we've seen we've seen this as well. The bigger the actual pay-per-view is, so the more stacked it is, generally the more people will tune into the prelims for obvious reasons. Just it's simple. So if you want to get exposure to guys who you're really excited about, you're gonna put them on the prelims.
Exactly.
Thing. It makes more sense. Like I remember Uriah Faber actually requested to be on the prelims before because he was
remember that?
He was basically saying, there's way more people watching these prelims, and I know that the main card is excellent. So I know all the people who are watching that, and it's going to be above average, are going to tune into the prelims, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to get this exposure. So they're definitely going to stack it down. But man, I don't want to do early predictions.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I don't want to do early predictions yet. Will we? No, you will do it. Go on, you go.
I'll do it. Jon Jones.
Jon Jones.
Even Jon Jones is going to beat a man with Thor's hammer on his chest.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's very true.
So unless he can pull that hammer out of his chest,
and hit him with it.
I don't think he beats Jon.
But is he worthy? That's such a nerdy joke. Sorry.
I don't have a problem with the fight.
No,
he's a worthy contender.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the fight at all. Like he's there. He's ranked. Like we kind of discussed this a few times. It's like he deserves the fight because he's the most deserving in the division. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you think he has no chance. There's nobody else there who can fight Jon Jones.
It's the same as DJ when he was a flyweight.
Yeah.
Exactly. Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, Amanda. I think.
Yeah, Amanda. Yeah.
She is a killer.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you remember we were hearing stories about Chris Cyborg sparring with men because it was all they could get?
Yeah.
And then Amanda goes and sparks Cyborg. Scary. Francis and Junior's a great little fight.
Man, that's
not a little fight. It's a huge fight.
It's a huge fight. Yeah. That's a lot of pounds. Man,
Francis seems to have got his groove back.
He's got his groove
They
back.
mentioned that on commentary at the weekend in Philly. They were like, especially it was Josh Emmett. They said it around. When you come back from an injury, it can take a couple of fights. You can just lose a bit of confidence coming off the loss as well. It took Francis 2 fights to get his groove back. He lost 2 ones where he barely threw a shot. But now he looks back in the groove.
And you have to say as well, and I know people question the Velasquez fight, was still a great win.
Yeah.
But like if you look at the 2 guys that he did beat, Ken Velasquez and Curtis Blades, if you're going to say what's the worst matchups for him, you would say someone like them too.
Yeah, wrestlers.
Wrestlers, exactly. Junior Dos Santos isn't going to wrestle with him. We don't think. Maybe he might go for a few takedowns, and it'll probably be a good idea. But I doubt he will. So it's probably going to be on the feet, and I think Junior's a better striker. technically, but I think Francis
Has
hits
the
like a
equaliser.
fucking Mack truck.
Yeah, Francis hits like if I picked up a baseball bat and poked it at someone's head, and then you put someone who's about 3 times my size with that baseball bat.
Yeah, it's like pretty much.
Yeah,
well said.
Askren and Masvidal. What do you think of the matchmaking in this one? Would you have given Jorge the Edwards fight?
Yeah, because
You like a story.
I like a yeah. To be honest, when I saw that happen, the punch, what was it called again? What did Masvidal call it?
Oh, the 3-piece with the soda.
3-piece when I saw the 3-piece with the soda go down, I was like, look at this is people are going to just want this fight now. And then when I thought about it, I was like, but wait, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make
like
sense.
It makes sense in the rankings as well, like in a way. I think Askren himself probably looks at it and says, potentially I could fight someone a little bit higher up.
He wanted Till.
Yeah, he wanted Till. He wasn't really talking about Masvidal.
No.
He didn't really see him winning. I don't have a problem with the matchmaking, but yeah, even for Edward's sake, I'd like to see him get that fight. There's plenty for Askren to go and fight, but I'd still, I'm not going to complain about this fight.
No, definitely
it's really
not.
good.
Great fight.
Great fight. But what a excellent potential card.
Brilliant card. Is that July 6th? Yeah, that's the fight week card. I seen as well actually that they're only going to do one card this week. Do you know the way they normally do the tough card on a Friday or on a Saturday night?
Yeah.
And then the second card on the Friday and Saturday,
It's
but
Friday and
rolling
Saturday,
to
yeah.
Sunday for us. Yeah, so they're only doing one card this year, which is
Wonder why.
interesting.
Yeah, I wonder why. That's weird. Did anything else jump out in the news to you that we didn't actually have on the topics?
Yeah, Jack Marshman. We spoke about him. Was it last week or the week before?
You brought him up, didn't you?
Yeah, I brought him up.
You're loving his story.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. So he went AWOL from the army to go fight. I actually read about it. His CEO said he'd okay it, but it obviously has to go to higher ups as well.
Yeah.
And the higher ups said, no, you're not fighting. So Jack Marshman said, fuck this, I'm fighting. Went and fought, won. Went back to the army, said he'd deal with it Monday morning. Went back, got a formal warning. So he's handed in his notice already. He's leaving in September. But the formal warning stated that if he goes AWOL again between now and September, it's dishonourable discharge.
Wow.
But Marshman also hinted that if a fight comes up between now and September and he gets clearance and he doesn't get clearance, he'll probably be fighting.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I'm sure the UFC know that. So if they start offering fights, they're just having the crack.
Yeah.
Like they're just being asses. But yeah.
Anything from you?
I saw a news story last week. I sent it to you because I knew you would have been interested in it because you're a bit of a nerd in this type of thing like me.
The business stuff.
The Avengers now. The business stuff. So it seems like, according to a report, that the UFC's owners, who are now called Endeavour, potentially are looking to bring the UFC public. So what that means is they'll have an IPO to basically sell out stocks for the company. And then when the company sell stocks, they go public, which means all their records and all their financial information will go public for the first time in the UFC's history. And the UFC have been historically very, very hush-hush on their financials.
Especially on percentage of revenue
to fighters versus to their pockets.
Yeah.
So this is a huge story.
Really
like
interesting.
a ginormous story. Like I used a word that I don't even use to say how big this is. And I knew you would have been interested in it because it does open up a can of worms for many things. But when I sent it to you, what was your initial thoughts?
Interesting. I had a lot of thoughts. We spoke about it off air, even just before when we were setting up here. I think it opens up to a lot more revenue-based decisions.
Yes.
So you're going to see the UFC, the profit man. If you buy a share, you're a shareholder then in the UFC.
Yeah.
So what are you going to want? What are you going to want the UFC to do? You're a businessman. You're going to want the UFC to make decisions based on what's going to give you the highest dividend at the end of the financial year.
Yeah.
So the example I gave to you earlier was you 100% would have seen Khabib McGregor 2 this year. Yeah. You wouldn't see Khabib fighting anyone else before he fights McGregor for the second time.
Yeah.
They're not going to do Khabib and Ferguson. Yeah. Because Khabib and McGregor makes the most money. That's the first thing you're going to see. The second thing is the financials.
Yes.
Really interested to see some of those. Going to see Dana's salary. Going to see all that. So that's a big check.
Oh man, did you see his ranch?
Yeah.
Well, is it a ranch? Is that what we
it's a ranch? Yeah.
Call it,
that's his like holiday home.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like his holiday home. He has like a little quad racing area down the back. It's like a child's dream.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So on point one, the business based decisions, definitely. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that this year because the UFC obviously was bought over. There was a huge loan taken out for the UFC to be bought over by WMG, IMG, and then Endeavor, and now as a whole. And of course, there was other people who have stakes in the company. Marky Mark, we'll get Mark Wahlberg versus Conor next. Mark Wahlberg, he boxed, didn't he, in that movie? Yeah. Mickey Ward. Yeah,
that's the one.
So you have him. Conan O'Brien owns a stake, so that probably tells you why there's always fighters on Conan O'Brien's show. But then if it goes public, you have like people who aren't really in the entertainment industry, normal people or investors who are going to invest in it. And you're right, like what they want is you don't put money into something if you don't want to make money. Like you want to make money. That's what your investment is. And if you're seeing, and by the controlling people of the organization are seeing not to be making the decisions that are going to make the most money, you're going to have a problem with your shareholders. That's what's going to happen.
Definitely.
So 100%, you're probably going to get more guys getting title fights when they shouldn't be. You're going to get more, it's just a lot more businessy decisions. Yeah,
you're going to see a lot more of the likes of Francis being fast-tracked to a title shot.
Yes.
A lot more of that sort of stuff.
Which isn't good in the long run.
No. You need to build stars, not just throw them in at the deep end.
Yeah.
Build a long-term brand. Yeah. Not a short-term money spinner.
But bringing it back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, hopefully now that the UFC aren't relying on these stars so much and they're getting a baseline thing, they don't have to do it as much. They still will be doing it because, if you're talking about a margin profit of 50% versus 40%, you're still taking that. So you're still going to make decisions based on that. It's not like it completely makes that null and void. But hopefully with these other decisions that they're making, that they're not going to do things like that. But it's a big news, like as you said, like all these financial information coming out in terms of like the revenue on pay-per-views that they made, probably the number of pay-per-views that were actually sold, because a number just gets thrown out there. And I remember when the first UFC contract actually went out, and some lawyer scrutinized it on Bloody Elbow, I think it was. I can't remember his name. Apologies. But it was Eddie Alvarez's contract with the UFC, I think it was. And he scrutinized it and basically went through it, and it was like, this doesn't even seem legal. Like half of the stuff in it. You're going to get a lot of that.
I was going to move on to that actually. I think fighters are going to have a lot less control if it goes public. And you're going to see a real push towards unionization or of some sort of...
You'd hope so,
some sort of like fighters joining together to actually talk for themselves. I know it's hard, especially in this industry where like fighters are, it's a very
they're fighting each other.
It's a very lonely industry. So to join together in that sense is weird. But I think if you go public, I think the fighters have to join to unionize in some form.
I agree, especially when all this information comes out, because the fighters and us and the media and everybody, we have an understanding of what the UFC make, and there's a 99.9% chance that is less than what they actually make. Because they wouldn't be overblowing their number, or maybe they would be overblowing their numbers when they're trying to sell. But if they're trying to sell, the other people are going to be looking at their numbers anyway. So it's weird. So a lot of stuff is going to come out about this, and it's going to be very, very interesting if it happens. And I think it said like as early as like the end of this year potentially could happen.
But you also said to me earlier, this could have been something that was planned. Who knows?
It could be.
So for all that stuff like that could have been the plan, because obviously there was a big loan taken out, and they can just say, well, we'll go public and pay it off, and then maybe go back private.
Maybe. But it's interesting times ahead in MMA. And we will see what happens, but I'm very interested in that story. And
let us know your thoughts on it as well.
Let us know. And you're gonna buy a share. Depends on how much they are.
I'll buy one share, but only if I get a certificate with it that I can stick on my wall.
Exactly.
What's the point of those?
Shareholder of the UFC.
So then I can change my Twitter bio to co-share or minority shareholder in the UFC.
It's like it is. You would be.
That's it. Like,
but like how much would you say it'd be? I don't even know where you'd start.
I don't know. I think I said this to you earlier actually as well. I think the openings, what happens with the early movements in the price would be really interesting to see where smart business people think the UFC is at right now.
That's a great point. That's a fucking phenomenal point, Sean.
Thanks.
Well done. So we're going to look at the best of March in MMA history. We're going to go all the way back, I think, to 1994 is the furthest we went back.
Believe so.
plenty of things that Sean hasn't seen before. We'll discuss. There's been some crazy things that happened in the month of March in MMA, and we're going to talk about them right now. We're going to look back at the month of March over the history of MMA, and we're going to look back at the biggest moments. We have 7 moments, so it's our top 7 moments, and there's been way more. We actually had to remove some for some logistical reasons. We didn't want to put too many, so you can let us know if you have any good picks. But our first one, as you can see on the screen, is Big John McCarthy refereed his first mixed martial art event and fight at UFC 2 in Denver, Colorado. So interesting one that it's a lot of people think that Big John McCarthy was there from the start. Technically wasn't. He done the UFC 2 event, and this was his debut. Look how young Big John McCarthy looks in that picture.
Love that logo as well on that t-shirt.
You would recognise him, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You would.
So young in that. So young.
Yeah. It was huge.
He is massive.
Yeah.
Did he have a fight?
No, but as far as I know, he wanted to enter. I think he wanted to enter the UFC and fight, and then he ended up just being a ref. Kind of just turned out that way, as far as I know. But yeah, this was his first event, and I'm pretty sure, as far as I remember, he refereed this whole event. So like there was no other referees. And I also I went back just to watch a little bit of his refereeing. And there's barely any refereeing in the first few UFC events. Like it's basically nothing. It's just a guy standing there making sure nobody dies, basically. Which we shouldn't laugh at, but it is what it is. Max Holloway. But I went back to look, and you want to see the guy on commentary. He's wearing this hairpiece. I think it's a hairpiece, because I never seen a hairstyle like this, and it's like split in the middle. Like I don't know, it's just like a split hair, and it's just out like this. It looks like he's wearing like a rat on his head. It's absolutely hilarious. But huge moment for MMA when you think about it, because a lot of people don't know how important Big John was. Like, he's not just a referee. Big John McCarthy was involved in developing the rules for mixed martial arts. He was involved with like the likes of Jeff Blatnick and all the early guys in the UFC to turn this into what it became. Because at the time, there technically wasn't any rules. And I remember hearing a story from Big John talking about how like he basically said there has to be something that we can do. Like I can't just watch a guy getting absolutely obliterated and not do anything. So there has to be some kind of rules. I need to be able to stop it at some point. It's like his name was a commentator, so it was mad.
Yeah, he's a proper OG of the game.
Proper OG.
He's someone you'd love.
Why does it sound like Conor McGregor there?
He's someone you'd love to sit down with for a drink and just talk about like the development of MMA as a sport. Yeah, because he's been there from the pretty much the very start. And there's not many people who can say that. Yeah, and that's always something that I always talk about. I don't know why I find it so interesting, but it fucking is interesting that the guys who basically created this sport are still alive. They're still around. They're still in it. Like John McCarthy's still in it, and he probably will be still in it for the next 15, 20 years, potentially. So it's crazy to think that like around this time was the start. Yeah, I'd love to see him more involved with the game than as a commentator personally. I agree. I'd love to hear him on more podcasts and stuff like that. Yeah. Still being a referee. Did he have a podcast? I think he did. Yeah. Or he could have been on one. Yeah. Was he on Rogan? Probably was on Rogan. I don't know if he was on Rogan. He was on something where he spoke at a bit of length about... I think that was MMA Junkie Radio. Was it? About being involved with the rule sets and stuff. And that was the first I heard of it, and I was like, man, that guy's still around. Yeah. Like, imagine the stories that he has. Yeah, insane. Like from all them days. Especially when you hear about, like, when you see UFC 1 and you're like, what the fuck is this what's going on here? Yeah. Like, yeah. And he's the one saying, we need to have something here. No grind kicks or something like. By the way, another thing and I don't like laughing at fighters, but it was kind of funny back in the day because, you know, a lot of these lads went in, and to be fair to them, they probably thought they were excellent martial artists, but they found out pretty quickly when they came up against somebody like who was actually a legitimate martial artist, like a Gracie or even like a Pat Smith or like a Dan Severn or someone like that who were legit martial artists. Like maybe some of their martial arts weren't the most effective at the time. Like Pat Smith done, you know, pretty okay, but obviously wasn't the most effective, and we saw that. But if you go back and watch, right, I think it was Johnny Rhodes against Fred Edish against Johnny Rhodes, and this is one that Big John commentated. Oh my god, Fred Edish is this guy, right? I think he was like a karate expert or something, and he had the full gear on the gi and whatever, and like he had like a stupid little mustache. Like a movie mustache. Yeah, like it looked fake, and then long hair. And it's incredible to watch because it just goes to show how far this sport has come. Yeah.
and he gets beaten. Like, gets beaten badly. Like, it probably should have been stopped a bit earlier. And then there's a moment. Watch this. It's fucking hilarious. There's a moment after the fight where they used to do post-fight interviews, but they used to do it outside the cage.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy who won, Johnny Rhodes, is doing his post-fight interview. He's there talking, this was great, and it's great from my school and all this, and I just want to show how legit I am and all this is cool. But then Fred Edish comes out of the cage and comes behind him, and he's standing there, and like he's just over the shoulder of the guy who just beat him up, and he obviously doesn't know which way to go. The security's trying to bring him out, and like he's in bits, and his face is just like, and he's just standing there like this. And his face is fucked up, and then he just walks off, and it's just one of them moments where you look like your man's talking, and I'd say he went back and looked at it and goes, "Oh, there's that guy who I just beat up, and he's behind me." It's just so funny looking, and it's terrible because he got beat up, but it's just one of them moments that is so funny.
I looked that up this evening.
Yeah, I looked that up. It's a very funny moment. In March 1998, MMA legend Kazuki Sakuraba made his Pride FC debut, finishing Vernon White when armbar. Have you seen much of Sakuraba?
Not a thing.
Not a thing. Treat yourself. We might treat you on educating young Sean sometime. But Sakuraba is a legit MMA legend, like proper MMA legend. Proper. He entered the UFC tournament in his second fight, UFC Japan. And that was like the second, so it was the second promotion he fought for, and it was the UFC. He lied about his weight because he couldn't get into the tournament. So he said he was like 20 pounds heavier than he actually was. And back in those days, he didn't really check. Yeah. So he fought Marcus Silveira, who's an enormous guy, and beat him by an armbar. But there was an early stoppage that they had before that as well. And then he fought. That was in the tournament final. And he won it, and he was like so undersized. Like, he legit was probably a welterweight, and he fought in this heavyweight tournament or open weight tournament, whatever it was. But yeah, he lied about his thing. Then he went to the Pride, and he was like the first Japanese superstar in MMA, and the Pride crowd just latched onto him, and he became this huge thing. Went on to become what was known as like the Gracie Killer, because he defeated like about 12 Gracies. Well,
interesting.
He beat about 5 Gracies. Beat Heist Gracie in a fight that went on for about an hour. No joke. Yeah, we won't make you watch that one.
How did the fight go on for an hour?
It was just it was no time limit.
Fight to the death.
Yeah, pretty much.
Demolition match.
Let me see if I can actually find the.
That must have been one of the first ever armbars as well.
Yeah, like Heist Gracie. Obviously, I don't know what Heist Gracie won early on. So Heist Gracie. I'm searching.
Filling some airtime.
Yeah, filling some airtime.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. The Pride stuff I really enjoyed. The production of it is mental.
Yeah,
especially Bas Rutten on commentary back then as well. Was he still fighting back then when he was commentating on Pride?
Bas Rutten?
Yeah.
No. So what happened with Bas Rutten was he wanted to fight in Pride. He never fought in Pride. He fought in a place called Pancrase, which was weird. It's a weird kind of hybrid MMA sport. He went to the UFC after that, and then he wanted to move to Pride, and then an injury kind of stopped him from doing it, so he never got to do it. Then he went on there. So yeah, the Pride 2000 openweight GP quarterfinals. The rules were modified for unlimited rounds and no ref stoppages. Madness.
No referee stoppages. So you literally have to kill a man.
Pretty much. It was the fight of the year in 2000. After 90 minutes, the fight was ended after 6 15-minute rounds. 3 of them being overtime rounds. How mad is that?
How'd you get an overtime round?
Just nobody won after the rounds. They were like, let's do another overtime. 15 minutes. 90 minutes they fought for.
That is insane.
Isn't that insane?
That's Japanese MMA.
That's Japanese MMA. Unbelievable, Sean. But yeah, Sakuraba is an absolute legend. Has some great fights. Didn't care where he fought in every weight class possible, and his career suffered because of it. He fought.
That was very much
guys.
the thing I've noticed from back in those days. Is guys fluctuated from welter to heavyweight.
Yeah.
Like the most recent example I can think of that is the likes of Anthony Johnson fighting at 170. How did that guy make welterweight? But
I've no idea.
But back in the day, all those guys used to do it. Like
and it was reverse. It was like that was Anthony Johnson cutting weight because he was trying to get a competitive advantage against smaller guys. Whereas this is Sakuraba saying, just want to fight this guy, so I'll fight a heavyweight, even though I can't make the weight, so I'll just lie about it. They won't check.
Insane. Absolutely crazy.
Absolute madness. Next up, in March 2003, Fedor Emelianenko beat Antonio Nogueira and become the Pride FC champion for the first time, his first title. Interesting story. Nogueira was just completely dominant. Nobody was beating him. He was beating everybody. There was a few weird fights in there. He was fighting middleweights and stuff, but still very, very dominant. Fedor come in with this. It was still early enough in Fedor's career, so he wasn't the guy that he was. But he was still kind of a feared guy coming from Russia. Comes over and beats Nogueira at his own game, gets into his guard and beats him with ground and pound.
Who would have been the favourite in that fight?
I'd imagine Nogueira would have been, just because he was so dominant. And I think, as far as I know, I'll get this up now, but I think Fedor had only like 6 or 7 fights at the time.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't have that many fights.
And was he sort of touted as the next big star, or was it just supposedly sort of another defence for Big Nog at the time?
Yeah, like as far as I know, and obviously a lot of these I've went back to watch. Yeah. As far as I know, he went. Well, he went and he won the ring. So there was a promotion called Rings. He won that tournament, and then he came to the UFC. So it was. He had 13 wins at the time. So like, and there's only 2 of them in Pride. The rest were in Rings beforehand. So yeah, it was a huge moment, and obviously what Fedor done then going on, insane. And you kind of came in at Fedor's later run, right?
Yeah, so around when he was around Bellator and stuff like that.
Did you get kind of the impression that he was like this almost mythical figure?
Yeah, like you're hearing about when he was fighting at the time, when I was coming to watch him, you're hearing about Fedor and all the stuff he done, and then I'm kind of sitting down watching him going, grand.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't around.
It's a fat Russian guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Pretty much like.
Who was probably juicing back in the day.
Yeah.
But then I'm watching the fight you guys gave me.
The Crow Cop fight.
Yeah, the Crow Cop fight, and you're seeing how enormous he was back then, how good he was back then.
Yeah, he was just a weird guy, like so just blank. Up next, we have the notorious Conor McGregor made his MMA debut in March 2008. Defeated Gary Morris, who we used to have actually on the show previously on the OFT show, which was an interesting talk. But Conor made his debut in March 2008. Of course,
a spotty faced Conor McGregor.
A spot, he's on the screen now. Very unattractive young man, wasn't he?
Yeah,
not the most attractive man. But yeah, of course, like important moment in MMA for many reasons. Just because he's been the biggest draw in MMA for the last few years
in history.
Probably in history. Maybe somebody who'll come onto this now we can talk about potentially could rival him in that as well. But he's one of the reasons, and you don't deny it and to admit that he's one of the reasons why you start watching MMA.
Yeah. I've seen the clips as well of that pro debut. He's wearing a mad Hawaiian shorts that he definitely paid about £3 for.
In pennies.
Yeah, or something like that. And he KOs a man and he goes wild. He jumps up on the ropes, and I remember him telling a story that John Kavanagh said, we don't do this in this gym, like.
Yeah.
Kavanagh gave him a bit of a bollocking for the showboating he done afterwards. Because his man was laying on the ground, obviously, and stuff like that. Yeah. So Kavanagh gave him a bit of a bollocking for
didn't
that.
Listen.
No, didn't listen one bit.
Yeah. So important moment in many ways. And it is cool to go back and watch some of those old fights on the regional scene.
The clips as well of Conor from those days where he's saying, going to be the UFC champion of the world. Yeah,
that's actually in that clip, that picture. I'm pretty sure that's that clip where he's like, I'm going to be the champ.
Yeah.
And then of course he had that moment where the picture was snapped with him and Chuck Liddell. Did you see that picture?
Yeah. Was that
and
the
Chuck
one
looks
where,
like coked out of his mind.
Yeah, was that UFC 95?
Might be. We'll Google that.
Am I right?
I don't know. I don't think you're right though. That was the UFC in Dublin, right? The first one. I'm thinking UFC 89.
No,
I'm wrong as well.
Am I wrong as well?
Yeah, we're both wrong. Unbelievable. We'll cut that out.
Who was the Irish guy in the card? There was the one Irish guy, and Conor has sort of spoken, and Owen Roddy has sort of spoken about this as well. There was the one token Irish guy in the card.
Egan.
Tom Egan.
Tom Egan was on the card, he got beat up by John Hathaway. But it was the first kind of Irish guy. There was an Irish guy on a UFC card before, but that was the representative of Irish MMA on that card, token guy. Although you had Marcus, the Irish hand grenade, Davis on the card as well, who's he's American, Irish heritage, but very proud of his Irish heritage. But big moment in MMA. You can't deny it. Whatever you think of the man, In March 2011, Ronda Rousey made her pro MMA debut, finishing Eddie and Gomez by, you guessed it, armbar 25 seconds into the first round. This was really big. Like I'd probably put this over the Conor one for a few reasons. Number one is that we probably wouldn't have seen women in the UFC, or at least not back when we saw it. Maybe at this point they'd get there, but Ronda was really the driving force that brought women into the UFC.
She was a star. Even looking at this picture, King of the Cage was the promotion.
King of the Cage, yeah.
Yeah, mad. Big John reffing it.
They're using the yellow canvas, are they?
Yeah.
The UFC taking their tips from them for UFC 100,
crazy as well. Like Dana has said, there's always the clips of Dana saying before, never put
hyperbole.
He won't put women in a fight. And then there was a quote from him last week that I seen. He said it was the best thing he ever did was bringing women into the fights. We've seen some great women's fights throughout the years as well. That even this weekend, that Carolina Michelle Ward fight was a great little fight. Great fight.
And it is kind of rare though, isn't it? That you have, like, I know there's in boxing now, like Katie Taylor's kind of driving and she's kind of doing similar to what Ronda done. And what I mean by that is kind of making it not acceptable, but making women's fights be able to be on cards with men's fights and people to say, great, because I want to watch it. Because like you don't get really in other sports like female, I don't know, golf combined with male golf.
No,
you just don't get it. And you can go to all the sports you like. Like MMA was one of the first sports where you had both genders on the same platform, and people were like, cool, yeah, it's excellent.
I think Katie is doing something similar to what Ronda done, as in making people look at them as just another fight. Exactly. Whereas not that's a women's fight, we're not going to watch that one. So Katie has been brilliant. Like the stories from Paddy Barnes, Michael Conlon, all those sorts of lads, Davey Oliver Joyce. Carl Frampton actually spoke about it recently as well. She beat him up. Yeah, and
Carl's good.
Yeah, Katie's dad used to take Carl down for sparring, he was saying, and he was saying that after a couple of rounds, he would tell Carl to put her under pressure, and Carl was like, "This is her dad, like," and he'd try and put it on her, but she was just beating him up.
Fuck, man.
So she's a savage.
Yeah. So for that reason, it's probably the biggest reason why Ronda Rousey was so important, and she left the sport on a very, very bad note. Yeah, a lot of people kind of turned on her, and for a reason. She didn't really leave gracefully, but it's impossible not to say how important she was for MMA.
I think it's another one kind of like TJ Dillashaw. It's hard to be that competitive and be a graceful loser. Yeah,
and she admitted it though. She admitted during the Olympics, like how just such of a sore loser she was. Yeah, and I don't think that's an excuse, because she did, like, some of the stuff she done was just ridiculous. Yeah. Like, but I do think it's important to remember that she was important. Like,
she broke down barriers massively for women in sport in general.
Yeah, and even like for the UFC and media, like the UFC were on like these shows that you'd never even think of them being on, as in like a representative of the UFC. So big piece of news or piece of history for MMA. And the final piece, Jon Jones in March 2011, so the same month that Ronda Rousey made her MMA debut, he beat Mauricio Shogun Rua in the third round to become the youngest champion in UFC history, and the record still stands. Jon Jones, man.
What age was he? 21?
23.
That's what age I am now.
Yeah. Oh, look what you're doing now.
Yeah, sitting here recording a show.
Yeah. Not quite as impressive, but you're doing a great job. Yeah, like John. So the story behind this, if you weren't watching MMA at the time, is that Jon Jones was on a great streak, and he beat. I'm gonna get the result up here. I can't remember exactly who it was that he beat at the time, but Rashad Evans was lined up to get a title fight against Shogun Rua. Rashad Evans got injured, so what happened was they went in. Joe Rogan went into the cage after Jones beat Ryan Bader. He submitted him. And went in and said that the UFC want to offer you a title fight, and he said, yeah, of course, let's go. And it's kind of a surprise, because even though people were saying, this guy's going to be the next big thing, a lot of people thought it was still a little bit too early for him. Yep. Especially against a guy like Mauricio Rua. Went in and just dominated Shogun, absolutely dominated him, hurt him badly. And then you had the whole saga with his teammate at the time, Rashad Evans, who was supposed to get a title fight. And they basically said, we're never going to fight each other. It's not going to happen. We're too good of friends. Jon Jones wins the title and goes, oh yeah, I'd fight Rashad.
Gas.
I'd fight him.
Yeah, because I seen with John's last fight, Rashad was kind of around on the embedded videos.
Yeah.
They seem to get on okay.
They seem to get on, yeah. Rashad said they kind of mended those problems that he had. But yeah, it was kind of funny. And then John went on. Like, John hasn't lost since.
Yeah, he's that one DQ.
That one DQ, yeah. And then,
it.
And some people say against Gustafsson he lost, but he didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's obviously had some problems. But still, Jon Jones.
He's still been an absolute superstar in sport. Like,
is he the GOAT?
I struggle to disassociate him from not PDs, but from pissing hot a couple of times, stuff like that.
Who's your GOAT?
Who's my GOAT? Oh, I don't know, because Anderson's pissed hot a couple of times.
Yeah. GSP?
I don't know. I haven't seen enough of GSP.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be GSP.
I'm very interested in hearing other people's takes on the GOAT.
Let us know.
I don't have a massively strong personal opinion on it because I haven't seen enough of the guys who are in the conversation. Yeah,
that's fair. But that's it. That's this month last month in MMA history. It's a good one. We'll do that again next month.
Let us know your favourite ones from this month and also what we missed.
Yeah, there was a few there that we actually took out just before we got recording, and there were some good ones, but we needed to take some out, can't tell you them all. But let's move it on to educating young Sean. So Sean, we gave you 2 fights last week. We'll start off with my pick. Just make sure we have the right one. We're going to start off with Yoshihiro Takayama versus Don Fry in a pride fight. Thoughts?
So I put this one on, right? I've started watching these the night before, so they're fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
I put this one on and I just started laughing. That fight was fucking crazy. They both picked each other the back of the head and just started thumping each other. Yeah. A proper rabbit punch and stuff. I was like, this is crazy. Originally I was looking at Don Fry as well. I was like, this man looks like something from a bad 70s movie.
Yeah, he was in Predator.
His little tash and stuff. I haven't seen Predator, so if that's a joke, I don't get it.
No, I think he was.
Was he?
Yeah, I think so. Was he? Don't know. We'll Google it.
But yeah, he has his little tash as well, and he looks crazy. And then they square up, the size difference. More Japanese MMA stuff. Like, what is going on here? Takayama with the blonde hair as well looks crazy.
Yeah.
And then they start to fight 10-minute rounds again. First round 10 minutes. And yeah, they just they'll take little breaks and then they'll just kick fuck out of each other, and then another little break and then go at it again. Crazy fight. Absolutely crazy fight.
I think I was wrong about Predator. I think that was Jesse Ventura or something. His nickname is Predator. It's an absolutely mental fight. It's something that, like, if you haven't watched a lot of MMA and you watch that and you're like a boxing fan, you're like, what is going on? What is going on? Rabbit punches all over the shop, and like they were just taking shot for shot.
Yeah, like Takayama's face after the fight was
god, yeah,
brutal.
Yeah, when they put the camera on him, when you're kind of in that clinch position, and they put the camera on him, and all you hear is the crowd going, ooh, like, oh Jesus,
I think both his eyes are covered. They look like 2 orbital bone fractures or something. It's crazy. It's
an absolutely mad. It's one of the mad fights of the sports.
I
history.
love the pride stuff. It's gas.
It's mad, isn't it?
So funny.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like even just the little things of like they can basically wear the gi if they want. They can wear their shoes.
And they were wearing boxing shoes. Yeah. I noticed that the other day. Yeah. Boxing.
Yeah. It's good for kicking. You know, when they hit the floor, you can kick. Absolutely madness. The other fight we gave you was at the time a controversial decision. It was Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit in a title fight. What was your thoughts on that one? That was an old pick.
Do you remember how you scored it?
I think I scored it for Robbie Lawler, but I can't remember how.
I gave it to Lawler by a round.
Noel's going to kill you.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a big Condit fan.
Okay.
He thinks he got robbed.
Yeah, so I gave it to Robbie, but I'm not sure. I couldn't be confident in that pick. Yeah. I don't know if it was a scandalous robbery. I've seen worse robberies. Yeah. Really good fight. Like, Lawler's been in some wars, and like especially that was UFC 195. So 189, he was in that war with Rory McDonald. So he went. That was basically a 6 month gap. He went back-to-back wars.
When you think about it like that,
it's crazy.
Insane.
Back-to-back, like to come back after that McDonald fight 6 months later and put in a performance like that and get the win. Like whether you think he got the win or not, but to get the win and put in the performance he did 6 months after that is crazy. It's
insane. It was a great fight, really, really good fight. And the mad thing is, like, he was like just floundering in Strike Force. Comes back to the UFC after a long time, and just looks absolutely phenomenal. Goes on a crazy run. His only loss, up until the Tyron Woodley loss, which was quite recent, was the decision loss to Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah.
And that was a close fight as well. A lot of people thought Robbie might have won that fight.
Really liked Condit as well.
Yeah,
his striking is brilliant.
Yeah, have you seen much of Condit?
Not a lot. His last fight I've seen.
And that's not the real Condit.
That was a brilliant performance from Condit. I thought he was really good.
Yeah. It's a really good one. What is your thoughts on that fight versus Robbie versus Rory?
The Rory fight all day is a much more entertaining fight.
Yeah.
That's one of the fights I'll watch now. If I was to show someone a fight, they said this is MMA, this is why you should get into it, this is why it's exciting.
Yeah.
I think the Rory fight is one of the ones I'd be showing to people.
Excellent. Yeah.
What do you
think? Yeah. I think the Rory Robbie fight is just instant classic.
I think that one with Condit was a bit more technical.
Yeah.
Because Condit's striking was that way inclined.
Yeah.
But
it was less of a gut check than the Rory Robbie one.
Yeah.
Still a good check for both, but like less of one.
The Rory one's just a war, which is the stuff I love.
And the way it ended was like it's just pain. It wasn't even a knockout. Like, it was a knockout, but it was just pain.
Absolute
just
violence.
Yeah, violence. And we know you like that. Speaking of violence, I'll give you one fight. Noel's not here, so we can't get his fight.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll give you one, and we'll stick on the Robbie Lawler train because he's excellent to watch. And we're gonna go Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler at UFC 47, and that was back in April 2004. Isn't that mad?
Jeez, I was 8 years old.
2004.
Jesus.
And they're still fighting now. Well, Nick isn't, but
yeah, still in the UFC as well.
Still in the UFC.
Is that UFC? Yeah, UFC
47. Yeah.
So Jesus, when did Robbie move over from Strikeforce?
So Robbie Lawler.
Have you got on Tapology though?
Yeah, I should do. Yeah, I do this now. So Robbie Lawler got to the UFC, was kind of tipped as this young gun. Early on, so he had 4 fights, then got to the UFC 237, went on a good run. Eventually he moved out after UFC 50 and went to a few different promotions, fought in Pride, King of the Cage.
That's right, because then he came back and won
Elite XC, then found his way to Strikeforce, and then Strikeforce of course got absorbed by the UFC, and that was it. But that's the homework for next week.
Do you know who I've seen a lot of in going on Fight Pass and scrolling through these guys' records and haven't watched any of his fights? So think of the guys you've given me so far, and there's a couple of common fighters. I'd be surprised, to be honest.
If I got it?
Yeah. You definitely know him.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's not like Karo Parisian or something, is it?
No, Josh Koscheck.
Oh yeah, Josh Koscheck, yeah.
So I'm going to start watching a couple of his fights as well.
Watch him. Funny Reddit meme today I saw for say Black Friday for only Fools and Horses.
April
Fools. Jesus, get there.
Good stuff.
It was Jonah Hill, who of course has the blonde fluffy hair now.
Yeah.
And it was Josh Koscheck got his first stripe on his white belt today, and there's just a picture of him with his white belt. Brilliant. We're gonna finish it off with Sean's weird news.
So first up, Rob, I have for you this week a video of Chris Cyborg and her coach. I don't think it's not from this week. She wasn't fighting this week. But I only came up on my Twitter feed during the week. So I'm going to play the video for you now.
Boo.
Her coach just lamps her. She's about to go and fight.
That's a big slap as well, isn't it?
She's not someone I'd be hitting like that.
No, I'd expect to dig back. This is from our last fight as far as I remember. We actually had Jason Perillo on.
We did.
When was that? That was on. I keep saying on.
Before
people
Christmas.
People who didn't watch, we had a podcast called obviously Fight Talk a while back, and we had Jason Perillo on, and we didn't actually ask him about this, but this came out at a similar time, and I'm not sure what Cyborg said about it, but Jesus, that is a crack. That is a serious crack. But it does look like she wasn't expecting it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like it doesn't look like something that they constantly do to get G'd up or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Odd, just odd.
Yeah, I guess he thought she's not in there. She's not in the game. Let's give her a smack. Brad Pitt always does that with Nathaniel Wood before his fights. But he waits for it and stuff. That looked like it was.
That's something they do. That doesn't look like something they've done before.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious.
So next up is Michelle Watterson. Showing her flexibility. We spoke about this earlier.
Stuff. To be fair, super impressive. That is super impressive. I couldn't do that.
The UFC tweet says to don't try it at home. I dare you to try it at home.
You
will fail miserably.
Record it or try it at home. Record it and send it in to us, and maybe that'll be Sean's weird news for next week. But Jesus Christ. Yeah, so if you're listening on audio and you haven't seen this, type in Michelle Watterson water bottle.
Yep, Michelle Watterson water bottle on Twitter or something.
Yeah, and she kicks 2 water bottles off our coaches' heads. I think one of them is our husband's as well.
Bit of a trust test. You know the way people will normally fall
Big
back
time,
in,
yeah. I would be like...
Yeah, I'd be expecting...
like squinting.
If it was one of my mates, I'd be expecting a boot in the face.
100%, yeah.
The last one I have, a bit of a good news story. So Mike Bone tweeted about Dustin Poirier, and he talked about, in recent years, Dustin Poirier has auctioned off his fight kits in favour of some noble causes, and with UFC 236 being his biggest fight ever, he's making his grandest gesture ever. So what he's doing is he's donating all his fight kit from UFC 236 to fund a playground for disabled kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a nice
Very
guy.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I seen that he done that a few times. He auctioned off all the stuff for a really good cause, and it's obviously becoming a thing now for him. And yeah, that's good. See, they're not all Neanderthals.
Yeah, they're not all cavemen who just like to hit people.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's really, really cool. I have to
So
say.
big up Dustin Poirier on that one.
Big up, man. Yeah, well done, Dustin Poirier.
Yep.
Cool. That's all we have.
Yeah, that's all we have for this week.
That's it. Thanks for tuning in. If you're listening on audio, you can give us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're not listening on audio and you're watching on YouTube, you can click the subscribe button. There's a few videos at the end of this video as well that you can maybe watch. And leave a comment. Let us know about anything we spoke about today. Do you think Conor McGregor has retired? Or when we leave this studio recording, has new news come out that he hasn't retired and he's going to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov? I know. Let's not think about that. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
So apparently if you press this button somewhere here, it subscribes and you get all the notifications for the show. So hit that button there.
You have to click the bell though to get the notifications down the bottom.
Make sure you hit it, and they get the ringer things because Rob didn't know. So it's the button there or there.
It's somewhere roughly around that area.